Hi, my name is Bruce Rienzo.
And I'm Mary Buxton.
And I'm Susan Desjardins.
I'm Charles Schaefer.
I'm Nathan Chan.
I'm Gary Latshaw.
We are members of your Loma Prieta Chapter Executive Committee.
And we're delighted to welcome you to the 2021 Guardians of Nature Benefit honoring Kathryn Phillips.
Now, on with the show.
During this event, we invite you to use the chat function to thank and congratulate our supporters and awardees. I will begin by thanking our honorary hosts who have lent us their names, their honor, and their support for this event. We would also like to thank our major sponsors, Google, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, NPIQ, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. We would also like to thank our Sierra Nevada Sentinels, Mary Buxton and Ron Hess, and an anonymous supporter. And we'd also like to thank our Yosemite heroes, Lisa Barboza, Suzanne and Rob Rubenstein, Santa Clara County Supervisor Joe Simitian and Mary Hughes, Sigal Vilnai, and 2 anonymous supporters. And we would also like to thank our generous Sequoia champions and our Bayland stewards. And thank you also to our in-kind donors who have provided many great items for our silent auction. So please check out the silent auction to find great gifts, great prices for a great support of your chapter. Good evening. I'm James Eggers, Sierra Club Loma Prieta Chapter Director. Delighted to welcome you to tonight's event and to remind you that this benefit is in primary to help us continue to build a sense of community. The Sierra Club Loma Prieta Chapter members and supporters form a very important community doing great work for local conservation. And not only conservation, but political activism and through our outings and fundraising. We hope for a hybrid event next year in which we'll be able to again provide you access to join us through Zoom, but also hopefully at that time, again, our in-person event that so many of you find very valuable. And now I'm delighted to introduce our good friends, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo and Assembly Member Kevin Mullen, to welcome our guests to this evening's event.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, and it's a real pleasure to join the legendary chapter, Loma Prieta chapter of the Sierra Club. Over the last year and some months, there have been many heroes in our community as we have tried to make our way through this pandemic. And today, the Sierra Club is honoring a true hero amongst us, Kathryn Phillips. She's been an environmental policy advocate who has devoted decades to protecting California's environment. As the Sierra Club California director, and before that, a policy director at the Environmental Defense Fund and policy advisor at the Center for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Technologies. She's been engaged in nearly every significant environmental policy issue impacting California over the last 2 decades. It's because of people like Kathryn that we have saved so much of our natural beauty here in our congressional district and beyond. So I join all of you in recognizing Kathryn Phillips for all that she has accomplished that is truly legendary. Congratulations to you, Kathryn. It's a privilege to be with everyone to celebrate you and your incredible accomplishments.
Hi, I'm Assembly Member Kevin Mullen. Welcome to the 2021 Guardians of Nature benefit for the Loma Prieta chapter of the Sierra Club. Thank you all for your unwavering commitment to the environment. I'm sure you were as pleased as I was with the legislature's historic $15 billion investment in a wide range of climate resiliency issues, yet there is so much more yet to do. I also want to congratulate Kathryn Phillips on being recognized tonight for her decades of environmental leadership. Have a great evening.
Thank you again to our dear friends, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo and Assemblymember Mullen. And thanks to all of our supporters who were able to help the Loma Prieta chapter do some incredible conservation work this past year. We were able to pass a bird safe design and dark sky ordinance in Cupertino. We were able to stop a harmful electronic billboard proposal in San Jose. And we were able to advise and influence Google's mixed-use transit-oriented development in San Jose downtown also. But I would say our biggest impact this year and our strongest campaign this year has been Bay Alive. Bay Alive has been made possible by a generous bequest from a decades-long chapter member involved in our outings who realized the importance of the San Francisco Bay and the ability of your Loma Prieta chapter to make an influence. So through this bequest, we were able to influence Redwood City, possible plans of filling in the bay, to influence the Moffett Park specific plan to save wetlands, to help our partners in East Palo Alto to fight against a proposed destructive development, and to defeat a proposal for a all-bay Bay Ferry terminal. Now I'd like to invite you to hear from our Bay Alive activists about the important work that they have been doing, and to thank David Simon for creating this video.
You know, people really love San Francisco Bay. They love it so much that they're willing to tax themselves for it.
So the San Francisco Bay, it's really a critical resource to all of us. It's central to our economy, to our identity, and to our wildlife.
People don't realize that the magic of the bay really lies in its wetlands and its marshes.
The wetlands, in addition to being the habitat of many indigenous species, are also an important flood protection for the people living across the bay.
Sea level rise it really poses a new, massive, and inevitable threat to the San Francisco Bay. How and how soon we respond to it is going to have lasting impacts on every one of us.
Every time that the Ocean Protection Council puts out a prediction about sea level rise, it's worse than the previous one.
It's urgent that we act now because we do have a shallow water ecosystem, and that is very vulnerable. If it gets flooded and dies, that's it.
How and how soon we respond is going to have lasting impacts.
And it's clear that we only have a few decades.
If we lose it, it's gone forever.
We're really excited at the Loma Prieta chapter because we got a great bequest from a longtime chapter supporter that is really allowing us to seize the moment. So we've launched a Bay-wide campaign that we're calling San Francisco Bay Alive to really build an all hands on deck approach, collaborating with all 3 Sierra Club chapters that surround the entire Bay. We're also working with local communities to lift up voices, local voices, educate and mobilize them around these same issues, with a particular focus on building relationships with community-based organizations and marginalized communities.
One of the first things we did with Bay Alive was to plan this informational webinar. We wanted to establish the Sierra Club as an entity that was important in the issue of sea level rise.
All sorts of Bay experts, scientists, regulators, elected officials.
To reach out to every single town, every single city, every single county around the Bay, every city council member, planning commissioner, city manager, public works director, parks manager, and invite them to this webinar. And we got a lot of interest. More than 350 people signed up.
An early career there, and as you.
So we're actually using those webinars in our Bay Advocacy Program classes
The Bay Advocacy Program helps educate and engage people in learning about the Bay and threats to the Bay. In the program this year, there'll be 10 Zoom meetings and 3 site visits. It includes information about the habitat and ecosystems of the Bay, also about how the Bay should adapt to sea level rise to keep the ecosystems alive.
The presenters for the Bay Advocacy Program I found to be both very knowledgeable, very hopeful, very good at helping us pinpoint and define exactly how to be most effective on a particular issue.
It's also an opportunity to bond with like-minded people and create a community that cares about the same things.
To this day, developers are rushing to build offices and housing along the edge of the Bay.
We're monitoring local planning and decision-making to identify opportunities to build in nature-based solutions.
And as sea levels rise, if people put up levees all around the Bay, we'll end up with a bathtub, not a bay.
We hope you'll join us in this effort. There are 3 specific things you can do right away.
On behalf of Bay Alive, I'm asking you to volunteer, donate, or advocate in your community.
Thanks to Loma Prieta Chapter supporters, in 2021, we've also had great impact through our work on REACH codes and climate action plans. Now, REACH codes are when a city chooses to reach beyond the state requirements in order to help their city or their institution move from using fossil-based fuels to full electrification. I'm proud to say that your chapter's work has led to more than half of the cities in our chapter have passed some form of REACH codes. And in all the state of California, more than half of the cities with REACH codes are in our chapter. So we're very proud of this work, very thankful for your support. And I'd like you to watch this short video from some of our activists that more fully explain what you have supported and the impact that it has had.
A REACH code is essentially, it's a local law that tells you what you can and can't do for new construction.
Every few years, cities have to approve updates to the national electric codes.
Now, when cities do this, they have the opportunity to pass an amendment to that code, making the different requirements for buildings even stronger.
It doesn't take much to look up in the sky and see, you know, our environment is changing quickly with the climate, with the fires, with the droughts.
Here in the Bay Area, buildings are our #2 source of emissions. So we have this vast network of fracked gas pipelines, you know, running underground through our cities and communities into our homes. And these pipelines are consistently leaking gas.
You want to get rid of your gas stove because of all the formaldehyde and NOx's and SOs that it generates in your home.
There's state level goals for carbon neutral energy by 2045 or 2050. So unless we start phasing out natural gas, then we can't reach that goal.
You know, if you're putting in a new building, it is so important that you don't continue to expand the gas pipeline network in the city.
So I think an emphasis really has to be placed on making our communities as sustainable and ecologically rich as possible, and ensuring all electric construction is one of the most important ways to safeguard that success.
For me, it's really a no-brainer that we would stop installing more gas lines and instead switch to something that's both better for the environment and also for public health.
In just our chapter territory alone, we have passed 25 REACH codes now. Many of those are fully all electric REACH codes.
And within the state of California, Over 50 cities have passed building electrification reach codes.
I just felt that we needed to really step up our efforts, to do more than we originally planned, and really make a significant impact. And so I initiated our city council to adopt reach codes that would require all electric new buildings, both residential and commercial.
As a chapter, we really made it a goal to try to get as many all-electric reach codes adopted as possible. We wrote letters, we talked with elected officials, we gave lots and lots of public comments, we educated community members and helped them with the process of navigating local government.
When it came time to approve our national electric codes, I made the motion that we delay and we be late. Members of the Loma Prieta chapter came and spoke at these meetings, which I think was very important to helping get other council members to support my motion. If there's too much opposition pressure, you need that support to do the right thing.
I've really appreciated and valued the expertise and the information, the education that Sierra Club Loma Prieta has provided me personally in helping to make smart policy decisions related to the environment.
We had a lot of guidance and insight on what reach codes were. We kind of were educated on what they were by members of the Loma Prieta chapter. And how to advocate for them, what meetings to go to.
Sierra Club was very instrumental in making this possible.
I hope this spreads throughout the country. I hope this becomes a norm.
Advocacy is so crucial. It helps to raise the priority of these solutions.
I've been really struck by the Gen Z generation, the young folks, who really are very concerned about their future, about climate change, and whether they'll have a future because of the negative effects of climate change.
We truly just want what's best for people across the world, across class, across race, and for us in our future and the future of our children and grandchildren.
The best way to make change happen is if you're actually involved in politics, if you're actually the one legislating and the one making change.
If there's one takeaway from my experience in this advocacy process that I would want to impart on you, it would be to get involved in local government. I just think it's a matter of people getting involved and speaking up, and I think we'll even surprise ourselves.
We at the Loma Prieta chapter would like to thank all of the advocates and elected officials, and especially the youth climate activists who have really led the way with all electric reach codes. All electric reach codes are a great first step to reducing emissions, and there's a lot more left to do, so we're super excited for the future of climate action in the Bay Area.
For that educational and inspiring video, I would like to offer special thanks to our volunteer, Megan Tobias, who began with us as a summer college volunteer and is now working professionally in a local Bay Area environmental organization. So thank you to all of our volunteers, and especially for this from Megan. I'm always delighted to see in that video how many local elected officials were giving testimony, because many of you have heard me say that our local environmentally conscientious elected officials are one of our greatest resources for local protection. And I'm never tired of retelling that 2 years ago, when we were able to have a meeting in as benefited person, I mentioned to Anna Eshoo that we were fortunate to have so many local elected officials like her that cared about the environment. And without missing a beat, she responded that it was because of organizations like the Loma Prieta chapter, who educate the public and activate the public to not only push for, but support environmentally positive local ordinances, laws, locally and at the state level. So now I'm delighted to to introduce you to a very special event that our Loma Prieta chapter has never had before. Our local volunteers produced fantastic nominations to Sierra Club National. And this year, our chapter has received what no chapter in history has. We've received 3 National Sierra Club awards for local elected officials and activists. The first one I would like to introduce is Clara. And I'll be reading from the exact wording of the award and the application for the award. Clara, California Assembly Member for District 27, has been recognized by the Sierra Club National Environmental Service Award that honors persons in public service for strong and consistent commitment to the environment and/or environmental justice over a considerable period of time. Assemblymember Clara deserves this and has been recognized for his outstanding advocacy work in environmental protection, environmental justice, tribal indigenous rights, and equitable access, including work to create San Jose clean energy, encourage climate smart agriculture, protect migratory birds, and preserve Coyote Valley. For many years, his Sierra Club environmental report card scores have been 100%. Please join with me to hear Clara's acceptance speech.
Every recognition I get is really based on the work I do with my community at the grassroots level. And there's no doubt that the Sierra Club, the Loma Prieta chapter, and the volunteers, the many hundreds and thousands of volunteers that have had the privilege of meeting over the years are the driving force. And you're the ones that are going to save the planet, that are going to save our region, that are going to do all the steps necessary to make sure that elected officials like me are not only held accountable, but we're held to a standard that pushes us forward to continue our work. So thank you all so much.
This year, your Loma Prieta chapter received a second award for Dave Pine, Santa Mateo County Supervisor. Again, I will read from the official statement from Sierra Club National. For his many groundbreaking achievements in climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, San Francisco Bay Conservation and Restoration, the creation of agencies to ensure the continuation and environmental protection policies and programs, including establishment of Peninsula Clean Energy, the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority, and a county flood and sea level rise resiliency district. Dave has been a stellar example of laying enduring foundations for clean energy, climate adaptation, and saving and restoring wetlands. Please watch with me, Dave's acceptance speech.
Thank you for this award. I'm really very, very honored to receive it. When I was growing up, I would skate outdoor on the ponds in the winter and didn't really think that they might not be around in a few years because of climate change, or I was, in the forest around my neighborhood, not worrying about the lack of precipitation and fires, or by the seashore and not worrying about sea level rise and what that might mean. So in some sense, I feel fortunate I had those experiences, but I'm really motivated and driven to think that young people today deserve the same. So again, I'm very, very grateful for this award, very, very honored by it. I look forward to working together in the years ahead. Thank you.
So thank you, Assemblymember Clara and County Supervisor Pine. And as I mentioned earlier, echoing our dear friend Congresswoman Eshoo's words, your chapter is able to have this kind of impact because of our great local volunteers. And your chapter received a third Sierra Club National Award this year for surely one of the greatest activist volunteers in all of the Sierra Club. And I would like for you to be introduced to that person now.
Imagine 177 RVs parked all over this beautiful field of hay bales.
Well, one of them where I really got involved with it for the first time was with the Lehigh cement plant.
At the time, they proposed more than 10,000 acres, which is almost the entire valley.
but my favorite is his work on the San Francisco garter snake.
Mike Ferreira and many others helped defeat that proposal.
It was up to Mike to actually see if he could steer the club to agree that this should be a priority for the club and join in litigation.
He and his team had to go to legal recourse, and they won.
The chapter ended up suing the cement company for polluting the creek that goes by that permanent A Creek.
Mike is a great oak tree in our chapter.
Mike is a fierce fighter. He's so sharp and so brilliant at really identifying the main issues and what to do about them.
Mike has a long history of activism with the chapter.
But it seems like he has his ear to the rail here in the train coming.
Because he attends all the meetings, he's able to stay abreast of these new threats.
Mike is there as an incredible support.
Mike inspires trust and he has a lot of integrity.
He makes time for everyone.
I will pick up the phone and say, Mike, do you have a minute? Can you give me some advice here? And he always finds the time to do so.
Once you get to know him, you couldn't find a kinder person.
He can work with a new member, or he can work with the old guard equally well.
He was always very straightforward.
He just does all this work because it's the right thing to do.
He never seeks the limelight. He prefers to work behind the scenes.
So you would never hear any of this from him, and he is probably embarrassed that we're doing this.
Congratulations, Mike, and thank you for being part of the advocacy effort at the chapter.
Congratulations on your chapter and your national award. You deserve both of them.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for your service. I know you've worked very hard.
Thank you, Mike. Congratulations.
Mike, thank you for everything you do. You're my mentor. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I am humbled by this. I would say that I don't idolize many people, but I was inspired many years ago by the great Peter Douglas, the great longtime chair of the California Coastal Commission. And when I would hear from him, I was just honored to hear his voice that he would even call me. So tenacity was his thing. I admit tenacity is a little bit of mine. And I enjoy very much working with the Sierra Club. It's got a long and glorious history, and I hope I can spend a little more time with it. Thank you.
In addition to the 3 awards to your Loma Prieta chapter from Sierra Club National, which, by the way, they have no record of any chapter having ever received 3 awards in a year. But in addition to those national awards, our chapter also presented awards to some fantastic, inspirational, and impactful members. In this photo, you can see again Mike Ferreira and Dave Pine, but also you can see, starting from the back left, Susan Desjardins, who received a chapter award for environmental education, Bruce Rienzo, who received our Distinguished Service Award, Lisa Matichek, who received our Environmental Achievement Award, and on the front row from the left, you can see Barbara Kelsey, who received our Behind the Scenes Hero Award, and Karen Mackey, who received Outstanding Sustained Conservation Chapter and State Leadership Award. And then the last 2 lovely ladies on the right on the front received Outings Awards. So I would like now to introduce Lisa Barboza, our chapter Outings Chair, to introduce those 2 awardees.
Single airs are one of our activity sections, and they are prolific. They meet lots of outings. They are some of the most wonderful, friendly people you'll ever met. They welcome you with open arms, and plus they have really great parties. So got a lot to say about that. So I'd like to thank very much Suzanne Loud for leading tons of hikes, serving as the secretary, just being there when anyone needed her, and especially in our year of COVID, keeping the flame alive. Thank you, Suzanne.
Single Layers is not just a hiking program, as Lisa kind of indicated. Single Layers is a community of hikers who care about their impact on this earth. I enjoy working with the leadership team as they, one, recruit and train leaders for hikes of varying levels of difficulty. At times we have had 3 different hikes on a single day before the evening potluck. On Tuesdays, I have an ongoing date to hike with Robert, and on Fridays with Kathryn. They have been my personal community, my Aaron and her, throughout these difficult months. A big thank you to both of you. I wouldn't be smiling today and eager to help the Single Layers outing program without you.
Lana Robillard is another one of our incredible outings leaders. I think one of her favorite places is a little dell, a small little dell by a stream, where in the spring you can find a carpet of gold fields that stretch out for hundreds of yards in every direction. It's a very special place. Lana has taken people, thousands of people probably, to these special places to help us appreciate our environment. So I really want to thank Lana Robillard for all the work she's done in keeping the flame alive during COVID season. Thank you, Landa.
I have a long history with the Sierra Club, and I will continue to carry the torch for you and get people out into the wilderness and just trying to get young people out and really enjoy nature, because it's important. If we're going to save it, we need to know about it. We need to be out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzanne and Landa. I've been fortunate to hike with both of these wonderful ladies many times. And while we look at both their current inspiring work and their history with the chapter, it's a great segue into our next award. Sierra Club Loma Prieta Chapter each year tries to find a local youth or youth group which has done great work for our chapter. And so now I'm delighted to introduce you to Baycats, which has been helping your chapter in significant ways. Please see their own produced video about what they do.
Hello everyone, we are the Bay Area Youth Climate Action Team, also known as Baycats. Our mission is to connect youth from all over San Mateo County and Silicon Valley, spreading awareness and combating climate change by educating all generations about current environmental issues and encouraging them to take action. Baycats has accomplished many great things over the course of this past year. And just to name a few, we have managed Sierra Club's Peninsula Regional Group communication operations, including monthly newsletters sent out to thousands of Sierra Club Peninsula Regional Group members, and a PRG website to display our current initiatives. We've also provided many public comments at city council meetings across several cities, including Redwood City, Daly City, Millbrae, Foster City, and San Carlos. We talked about divestment and plans to ban plastic. Lastly, we hosted a Earth Day webinar for school outreach, inviting guest speakers like Gladwin D'Souza talking about broadband for all, Mary Buxton in her conserving 30% of California lands and waters, James Coleman's divestment, and Doug Silverstein's single-use plastic foodware ban. Together, we will create a lasting impact on our planet and strive towards a brighter and cleaner future.
Thank you, Baycats. And to all of our participants this evening, if you know of youth who want to help save the planet, please encourage them to contact your Loma Prieta chapter. We are trying to save their future, and we need them to help work on it now. Next, I would like to introduce the main part of our program. After seeing so many deserving local volunteers and elected officials, I'm happy to introduce you to a video by Mike Curran, who has been producing our tribute videos for years, and you can find them all on our website. But I would like now to introduce you to Kathryn Phillips, former Sierra Club California director, our honoree of this evening, and for you to see Mike's great production of why Kathryn is so truly deserving of this special honor.
The club's role is to be the kind of uncompromising, clear voice for the environment. What's going to protect the planet? What's going to protect public health? What's going to protect the future so there is a future? And as a result, when you're going in to be a lobbyist for the club, you're often the person that's at the table saying, no, it's not good enough to compromise. We have to take a stronger stand, a stronger position.
Kathryn represented the Sierra Club in a very consistent manner, and that was very important for work in Sacramento. So I knew when Kathryn was going to walk through the door that she had an idea of how to help us think about how to get there.
I've always admired Kathryn's ability to have a big perspective, a long-term view, and be right focused on the challenge of the hour.
The one thing that stands out for me about Kathryn and her work is her keen understanding of political nuance. She knew when to be tough, when to listen. She never lost sight of the very big picture of our goals for not only a livable planet, but for an equitable and safe place for everyone.
You can't be fearful. You have to know your stuff. You have to be on top of it, but you also have to be persuasive as well. And I think she taught me the necessity of having all three of those techniques in my advocacy is probably the best way to advocate for the environment ultimately.
My father was in the military until I was 8, and my mother came from a part of Norway that is above the Arctic Circle. It's on an island group above the Arctic Circle. We moved to California when I was about 8. We settled in San Diego. As long as I can remember, when we were kids, our family would go camping. I was growing up during the 60s and 70s. I was very interested in politics. I walked precincts when I was 15 for George McGovern. It's the first of many campaigns for progressive candidates who didn't win. Then I go off to college to UC Berkeley. From there, I did an internship on a newspaper in Alaska and decided I wanted to be a journalist. So I went to Missouri for graduate school in journalism. Most of my career was spent freelancing, and I wrote a couple of books. But then I wanted to do something related to environmental policy. So I got into UCLA's policy school. One of the people I talked to a lot was a guy named John White. He was the contract lobbyist for about 20 years for Sierra Club California. And I stayed with him working on various policies for about 3 years, and then went to work for Environmental Defense Fund. And I stayed with them for about 7 years. I happened to be walking on the street downtown, and I ran into Bill McGavern, who was director of Sierra Club California. He said, "Have you heard that I'm leaving?" And I said, "Well, you know, it's funny because I'm starting to look for another job. Do you think I should apply?" When you have 13 different chapters and the national club, it could get confusing what the Sierra Club's position was. So in 1986, the national board established Sierra Club California as the entity that would do the regulatory and legislative advocacy for the club so that we would speak with one voice in the capital. And we have a professional staff that's hired to do policy advocacy and organize. When a local chapter is interested in a bill, they go through a process where Sierra Club California evaluates the bill and determines whether or not a position would be consistent with the club's goals. But it's the legislative committee of volunteers that ultimately determine what our position will be on each bill. So it's very volunteer driven.
We have many issues here in our area in Southern California, and one example is the dire situation at the Salton Sea. Even though it's far removed from Sacramento, Kathryn understood the concerns that we have that really do affect the whole state, and she assigned Brandon to be our eyes, ears, and our voice at statewide agencies involved in work to remedy the situation there and the impacts.
For her, the nexus was always pushing us back to the air quality and the impact on the neighborhoods. The end goal was to get the state to do regulations on requiring public operators to turn over their fleets. When it stalled at the state level, she put energy with her team at the local level to show progress of those policies there. It took a long time for the California Air Resources Board to actually adopt the regulations, and Kathryn was always at the forefront of that.
Senate Bill 1, which was the biggest environmental bill of that year, had to do with kind of protecting California's environmental standards in light of the Trump rollbacks that were happening federally. And Kathryn was just running around the Capitol, talking to every single person she could talk to, and I couldn't keep up with her.
One of the great things that Sierra Club California has done in the past and continues to do is an annual report card that looks at how people vote.
One of the representatives was a little bit upset with their score on our annual scorecard. And she really just let them know, like, this is what Sierra Club does. This is where we are. If you don't like it, let's find a place where we can work together, but we're not going to stop holding you accountable.
As director, you're essentially the lead lobbyist, and you're the lead fundraiser, and you're the lead administrator, and you're the lead communicator. So you do everything. You're the traffic cop, you manage the staff. So I spent a lot of time training staff and making sure they were prepared to effectively represent the club.
It was not uncommon to see Kathryn and her team in the building at 11 o'clock at night, at 1 in the morning, because they were working that late to make sure that environmental interests were being protected.
Our staff is a very good young staff that's knowledgeable, that's passionate, that is able to do the work that she taught us in an effective way. And I think that's because she spent time finding out what each of our passions were and our strengths, but also our weaknesses, and then helping us work through those.
Kathryn has been the consummate Sierra Club leader because she knows policy better than almost anyone. She knows politics better than almost anyone. And she knows people who are in positions of power across the movement, inside the organization, and at agencies across the state.
Sierra Club members pay attention and they endorse, and they go out and they walk precincts and they make phone calls, and that can't be underestimated, the value of doing that. And they send good legislators up to the State House, and that makes a difference. There are so many really good legislators in the State House, really decent people who are very smart, who vote the right way, who take barbs from the polluting interests, and they still stand their ground. And that's because the Sierra Club has helped get them to that place and continues to support them.
I think Kathryn is a leader amongst the enviros, and her retirement is a huge loss to this community in Sacramento. I didn't always agree with her, and I appreciated that we could disagree and still move forward together. And I think for me and for my personal development and my professional development as a Latina in a space that's changing and becoming more diverse, that Kathryn was really helpful to me.
She brought together many different voices and led the way in incorporating environmental justice into our work throughout the state. She built Sierra Club California into an entity that was listened to and quoted many times on the front page of the LA Times. So she really built our organization into a powerful voice for the environment.
Kathryn has always known why we're doing this work, who we're serving, who we're working to help strengthen, whose voices we're working to amplify. And she approaches her work with a kindness. She actually cares about people. She cares about the solutions that we're trying to implement.
Before she left, she wrote about a 30-page transition document that goes through who I should talk to, when I should talk to them, what I should do for this issue, what I should do for that issue. She still has a footprint in how we do things at Sierra Club California, because for the longest time she was Sierra Club California. And so I want to make sure that I'm still able to keep the reputation that Sierra Club California had under her leadership and move that into the next generation.
And now, As if that were not enough, I am delighted to introduce you to another speaker to add icing on the cake of Kathryn's tribute. Now we'll hear from 2018 Guardians of Nature honoree, our own dear Santa Clara County Supervisor, Joe Simitian.
Congratulations, Kathryn. Kathryn Phillips is just such an appropriate recipient for the 2021 Guardians of Nature recognition and award. You know, in Sacramento, there are a lot of legislative advocates, lobbyists. A lot of them are noisy, even bombastic. Not Kathryn. Kathryn's style was always to be quiet, but dogged, determined, knew her stuff, was someone whose word was good, and was passionate about the values that she and the club share, but also very practical about the process and its limitations and opportunities. When she saw an opportunity, she took it. So I can't be more pleased. I worked with Kathryn over the course of my time in the legislature. First, she was at CERT, the Center for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Technologies, doing good work there, and then on to the Environmental Defense Fund, and then to the Sierra Club, where she really found a home and made a difference that all of us benefit from all these years later. And with the strength of the club's membership around the state behind her, she did battle and won when she was up against some pretty tough forces. So we owe her a lot, and I send my thanks as well as congratulations. But I also want to say what a wonderful, wonderful choice the club has made this year to recognize Kathryn Phillips, who has done so much, given us so much, and been so effective. I happened to come across, Kathryn, a 10-year-old video when you were kind enough to appear on my Capital Focus television show for a 10, 15-minute interview. And I remember you describing the work of the club as democracy in action. And you're absolutely spot on. When the club raises its voice, its collective voices from around the state, it really is democracy in action. And you were the personification of the club's good values and the importance of the work. So thank you again, congratulations, and good choice, club, for selecting Kathryn Phillips, really well deserved.
Thank you, Joe, for that icing on the cake. And now, to add a pile of cherries on that cake, I am delighted to introduce a friend of the Sierra Club and a fan of Kathryn, who wanted to congratulate her this evening, California Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Hello, Sierra Club, Loma Prieta. I'm Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. It's great to join you tonight for the 2021 Guardians of Nature benefit. And it's wonderful to celebrate and introduce a friend and fierce advocate, Kathryn Phillips, as we recognize her decades devoted to defending our natural resources, climate, and health. When it comes to protecting the environment, fighting back against corporate polluters is not enough. We have to push our climate agenda forward, and that's what Kathryn does. When Kathryn served as Sierra Club California Director, I can tell you with certainty that she showed up, she spoke out, she is a guardian of nature. On nearly every significant environmental policy issue impacting California over the last few decades, Kathryn was there. She was always there for me. Small tweaks to existing law, Kathryn was there. When I introduced the California Green New Deal, Kathryn was there. From my earliest days in the legislature to my final weeks, when we needed green muscle on the Assembly's green carpet, Kathryn always delivered. She provided important counsel on nearly every piece of environmental legislation, using her skills as a former journalist, science writer, and author of 2 books to help us shape compelling narratives and coalitions to get bills onto the governor's desk. After a career in journalism and policy in the early 2000s, she joined the Environmental Defense Fund to work on reducing diesel-generated air pollution in the San Joaquin Valley, and following a series of wins, she would go on to lead Sierra Club California, passing and influencing the implementation of key California policies designed to cut climate pollution. Under her leadership, the Sierra Club was a key player in so many wins over the years, especially AB 262, the Buy Clean California Act, a critical law requiring the state to spend taxpayer dollars on infrastructure materials in a way that is consistent with our pollution reduction goals. It was a bill of great magnitude, a bill of top priority for the Sierra Club, and a bill Kathryn had faith in me to author. In our many climate fights together, here's what I learned. Need just a few more votes, a few more partners? Call Kathryn. In her career and in her retirement, Kathryn charts new trails for us to hike, setting an example for each of us. We owe it to the planet to be more like her, a defender of the natural world. That's what the Sierra Club does, and that's what I strive to do every day as our Attorney General. Right now, communities continue to be poisoned by toxic air and dirty water. Historic droughts, floods, and fires continue to destroy habitats, lives, and livelihoods. Big oil and big business continue business as usual. The path we walk, it's unacceptable. This can't continue. We have to keep using every tool we have to defend our planet, to protect our most vulnerable communities impacted by climate change and environmental pollution, to continue to undo some of Trump's most outrageous environmental attacks, rollbacks, and rules, to keep taking legal action to protect the health of our communities, especially those that live at the intersection of poverty and pollution. At the California Department of Justice, we protect what matters most, our health and the health of our planet, a commitment that powered Kathryn in her many fights, and a commitment that unites everyone here tonight. As climate advocates, we don't just believe that it's our responsibility to fight climate change and protect our environment. We're doing it. As each of us continues to fight, let's continue to do what Kathryn does, inspire others to join us. Congratulations, Kathryn, on this recognition. I'm forever grateful to work side by side with you, and thank you to the Sierra Club and the Loma Prieta Chapter in particular for the work you lead. Fight on and hike on for climate justice.
Thank you very much, Attorney General Bonta. And now I have the great pleasure to introduce a Sierra Club hero, California hero, and one of my own personal heroes, Kathryn Phillips.
Thank you, James. Thanks to Rob Bonta for the very generous introduction, and thanks to Joe Simitian for those extremely kind words. They've both demonstrated such strong environmental leadership in the legislature, and they continue to do that in their current positions. And I'm so proud to have had a chance to work with them. A huge thank you to the Loma Prieta chapter and its executive committee for adding me to the list of Guardians of Nature. I'm humbled to be included among the accomplished environmental champions that you've honored in the past. And thank you to Loma Prieta staffers, James and Justina, and for pulling together all the logistics for this and helping me through the technical stuff. And also along with a fantastic volunteer team, Dave Simon, Mary Buxton, and Barbara Kelsey. And thanks especially to Mike for the wonderful video. I'll be sharing that with lots of family and friends for years to come. They'll finally understand what I did for a living. I also want to thank my staff over the last decade, especially my most recent staff, whose dedication to the environment and equity drove them to work harder and more intentionally than just about any other environmental organization staff in Sacramento. And I want to say right up front that even though I have retired from Sierra Club California, I haven't retired from making good trouble on behalf of California's environment. My life has been made richer in so many ways by Sierra Club. In my 20s and 30s, local chapter volunteers in Southern California taught me how to hike, how to backpack, how to identify wildflowers, how to tie a square knot that stays, how to build an igloo while snow camping. A Sierra Club member took me to the desert to count bighorn sheep in the middle of summer. And they did all of this, even though I wasn't a card-carrying member. I had paid no dues. In my 40s, when I left journalism to follow a policy advocacy career path to change careers, the first thing I did was pay dues and officially join Sierra Club. And I did it in part because so many volunteers had helped me to see wild California and its rich natural beauty. Volunteers hired me in 2011 to direct Sierra Club California. I was so excited to be able to work for an organization that was no nonsense and unapologetic about demanding that the environment and environmental quality be protected. Volunteers stepped up in dozens of ways over the years to help advance environmental policy in the state capitol while I was working there. And for instance, they reviewed hundreds of bills each year. They tracked regulatory action, they researched pressing issues and crafted papers we could share with legislators. And a lot of those volunteers came from the Loma Prieta chapter. Volunteers rapidly responded by the thousands when my staff or I put out a call to help pressure some legislator or some agency to do the right thing on a bill or regulation. My partner, Julie, she used to joke that every Sierra Club member in California was issued my cell phone number with their membership. The calls never stopped, including on evenings and weekends, because the volunteers never stopped working. Members and volunteers give the club its power and its heart. Your persistence, your determination and resilience have been essential to every significant effort to protect the planet in California and beyond since the club's founding. And I know you've all been inspired tonight by the videos about different projects going on in the Loma Prieta chapter and the acknowledgement of Mike Ferrero by National for his great work over the years. We live in interesting times, and there are some really dark topics that hang over our world. The climate emergency, wildfires, and debates about how to manage forests, the power of the oil and gas industry to influence too many elected officials, water scarcity. It would be easy for those who love the natural world to just throw up their arms, say to hell with the rest of humanity, and run off to the mountains for good. But the thing I love most about Sierra Club is that it's composed of, it's driven by people who don't run away from environmental problems. Instead, they dig in and they defend what they love. They demand that polluters stop polluting. They protect biodiversity and habitat. They identify policymakers who can help change things for the better. And most important, they hold those policymakers accountable. Sierra Club volunteers are nothing short of inspiring in the truest sense of the world. And they don't just do the work for themselves, they do it for their children, their grandchildren, their favorite wildlife, their favorite wild place. They do it for strangers who haven't even joined the club. Volunteers gave me the chance to do work I love for an organization I love. So thank you again, Loma Prieta Chapter, for this award. Congratulations to the other award recipients that were mentioned earlier this evening. And thank you for all the support you gave me when I was a club staffer. Thank you, Sierra Club members, volunteers, and staff everywhere for everything you do for the environment every day.
Thank you, Kathryn. And I would like to echo her important words that probably more than 90% of the work of Sierra Club chapters and probably more than 90% of the expertise of Sierra Club chapters actually come from our volunteers. So that's a great way for any of you to join to help support our work. And now I would like to also recognize some of our great volunteers. David Simon, who is the master of our event this evening, the wizard behind the curtain that helped to make all of this happen. Justina Guterman, our chapter development coordinator, who put in more hours and time and energy than could be encapsulated. The indefatigable Mary Buxton, who inspired us all. Megan Tobias, who has helped for years from time in college until now to help produce many of the videos. To Barbara Kelsey, who is the heart and soul of this chapter. To Mike Kurgan, who helped develop for many years this. Thank you to all of you for your commitment. And again, to the staff members who are inspired by the work that the volunteers do and their commitment. I'd also like to invite you again to our 2022 benefit, which will be our 89th anniversary for the Loma Prieta chapter. We hope that you will join us then, and hopefully we'll be able to have a hybrid event. Also, I encourage you again to visit our silent auction. Lots of great items from very generous donors, great prices, and most importantly, it will help to support the great work of your Loma Prieta chapter. So this is James Eggers, your Loma Prieta chapter director, thanking you for your attendance, thanking all the volunteers for their work, thanking our honorees for participating. We hope we'll see you again very soon. Good night and happy trails to all.